Hello teachers, in this presentation, we will be sharing our eMath WA3 slides with you. I am Guinia, and joining me in this presentation will be Jess, Yunfan, and Kaden. In this presentation, we will be covering Task 2, which estimates the overall household income that a typical Singaporean family with one kid should have. Firstly, let's examine the information given. In the given information, the keywords to take note of are a typical Singaporean family, family with one kid and two adults, and single or dual income family with all adults working. Secondly, let's discuss the information required to accomplish the task. We have to first take into consideration of the bills, be it water bills, electricity bills, education or school fees that a typical 3-person Singapore family has to pay. Next, you have to take note of the food consumption, if the family eats at home or eats outside. Additionally, the transportation fees should also be included along with the type of education the child receives. Last but not least, allow me to share with you the assumptions made that has allowed us to simplify the problem. We assume that this family consumes home-cooked food on a daily basis. The family does not own any sort of private transportation and takes public transportations like bus and MRT. The assumption made of the child's age is that he is 8 years old and in primary 2 with both parents working. Therefore, dual income will be calculated. We also assume that the family lives in a fully paid typical 2-room HDB flat in Taman Jurong. And another assumption is that the family is Chinese Singaporean citizens that travels to Malaysia twice during the month of June and December. It is also assumed that everyone in the family falls sick at least 4 times a year. Lastly, we assume that the child will start working after 6 years, which is the period of time that we will be calculating for. In this slide, we will present the task mathematically using algebra terms. The cost of transport yearly will be represented by T, education per month represented by E, cost for healthcare 4 times per year represented by H, celebration 5 times per year represented by C, household fees monthly represented by HF, overseas travel fees represented by OTF, cost of food per month represented by F. Hence, the formula will be represented using this simple equation: 6 times T plus 12E plus 12H plus 8C plus 12HF plus 2OTF plus 12F equals to the amount of money the family needs in total. Now, let's represent the formula as a pie chart. The pie chart below shows the yearly expenditure of living percentage in Singapore. The light green portion represents the food, which takes up 71.6% of the total income. Orange portion representing celebration, which takes up 5.2%. Yellow portion representing overseas travel, which takes up 1.2%. Dark green portion representing transportation, which takes up 2.2%. Red portion representing education, which takes up 11.6%. Blue portion representing healthcare, which takes up 8.2%. As inferred from the pie chart above, celebrations take up a large portion for the family's expenditure, followed by education, then healthcare. Now, I am going to pass over the time to Kaden to share with you the remaining variables.
However, there are some limitations when using the pie chart to show our data. Firstly, the pie chart may not show the exact amount of money of the different factors. Secondly, the values of the variables can fluctuate to a large degree due to external circumstances such as inflation and GST, which may make our pie chart inaccurate. Lastly, each variable covers a large amount of items. For example, in household fees, there are many factors to consider when determining it, hence increasing the likelihood of inaccuracies. Next, this is how we calculate the different variables. Firstly, regarding the travel fees, it is 99 cents for an adult and 44 cents for a child per travel. Assuming he travels twice a day, every 5 days, there will be 40 times each person in the family will travel every month. With that in mind, since there are 2 adults and 1 child, the total amount of money per month on transport is $96.80, in which it is $161.60 a year. Secondly, regarding our household fees, it comprises of electricity, water, internet, and gas fees, which will accumulate to $325 a month. Thirdly, regarding healthcare fees, which is for every visit to the clinic, our group assumed that each member of the family will fall sick at least 4 times a year. Hence, the healthcare fees will add up to $600 a year. Additionally, regarding education fees, it comprises of tuition and school fees. For tuition, we assumed he has a full-time tutor and has tuition 2 hours a day for 3 days. Hence, the tuition fees will add up to $840 a month. Next, for school fees, based on the MOE website, it is usually $6.50 a month. Hence, altogether, the education fees will be $10,086.50 a year. Furthermore, we have also taken into account that there are celebrations which they will celebrate every year, which are Chinese New Year, Christmas, and their birthdays. Upon calculating the items needed for these celebrations, the total price comes up to $378.25 a year. Lastly, on the overseas fees, we assumed that the family will travel to Malaysia twice every year during the June and December holidays. Hence, the fees of travel will be $86 a year. With all these calculations in mind, we used the formula highlighted in the slide to find the total price of the overall household income that a typical Singaporean family with 1 kid should have for 6 years, which is $143,552.60.
Of course, there will be constraints with our mathematical solutions. For example, transport fees for every month may differ based on the distance travelled. Furthermore, it might differ based on the mode of public transport they take, as well as on the frequency they take it per day. For education, the tuition fees may differ based on the skill level of the tutor, as more experienced tutors will cost more than an inexperienced tutor. There may be even extra fees that the school may want to collect if there's any special program like camp. For household fees, water, electricity, and internet usage are different every month. Hence, the fees are not always the same. Sometimes, the family needs to pay more than planned to repair or buy certain items. For healthcare, the number of visits to the doctor and the cost of each consultation can vary dramatically, as different ailments require different treatments and each doctor's appointments may not cost the same. For food, the family may not want to eat home-cooked food every day, as well as they may not eat the same food every week. They may buy snacks and dessert other than the planned foods. Celebrations may be cancelled due to different circumstances, such as the family being busy, as well as the items for every celebration may differ every year. Hence, the costs will be different. For overseas travel fees, travelling is not always constant every year, as there may be some occasions that the trip may be cancelled, such as during COVID lockdowns. They may also not travel to the same country and or city every holiday, which will definitely show a difference in the costs. Our solution put in a real-world context will be that 2 working parents with 1 primary 2 child will be planning for the future, and they will have to calculate how much they will need to spend to do so. With our completed calculations, they will be able to get a rough idea of how much money they will need to earn to sustain themselves and can adapt their lifestyles as they see fit. Alternatively, they may also make use of the formula that has been put forward that will allow them to get a more accurate picture of their own unique situation, which will also allow them to better understand whether the working parents are making enough money to sustain their present lifestyle. On the adequacy of data collected, we think that to a large extent our data is adequate. We believe that we have taken into consideration most of the major factors, such as transportation fees, food fees, education fees, healthcare fees, celebration fees, overseas travel fees, and household fees, that are relevant to raise one child in a typical Singaporean dual-income household. However, there are still certain small factors not included, such as fees for household supplies, which accumulated might cause a major inaccuracy. How can we improve these solutions? Number 1, we could have taken into account inflation, as the prices of things may fluctuate dramatically over time and will not always remain constant. Number 2, as stated before, the child's tuition fees may differ based on the tutor. We can survey Singaporeans to ask how much they are paying for tuition to allow us to capture how much the general public is paying for tuition. Regarding the healthcare aspect, the price of their visit to the doctor will always be different, depending on the treatment they get. We can find the most common types of ailments Singaporeans usually suffer from and how much it costs for consultation or treatment of those ailments, and calculate the more accurate cost from there.
Comparing the data found for Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, we have found that prices in Kuala Lumpur are generally lower than that of Singapore. Some examples include: in Kuala Lumpur, 1.5 litre of water costs for 2.9 RM, which is 0.85 Singapore dollar. In Singapore, 1.5 litre of water costs for 7.09 RM, which is 2.07 Singapore dollar. For jeans, Levi's 501 or similar, in Kuala Lumpur it costs for 219.64 RM, which is 64.06 Singapore dollar. In Singapore, it costs for 338.46 RM, which is 98.72 Singapore dollar. For fitness club monthly fee, in Kuala Lumpur it costs for 200.66 RM, which is 58.53 Singapore dollar. In Singapore, it costs for 529.73 RM, which is 154.51 Singapore dollar. Potential reasons why there is a large difference in price of items between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore would be: food and other products similar are healthier in Singapore, hence the prices in Singapore are higher. Secondly, private transportation such as cars are more expensive in Singapore than in Malaysia, as Singapore has a lower land mass than Malaysia, meaning that Singapore has more incentive to limit the amount of cars on the road by increasing their prices than Malaysia. Thirdly, Singapore is much more developed compared to the state of Kuala Lumpur, meaning that generally goods sold in Kuala Lumpur is cheaper than those sold in Singapore. Fourthly, the SGD is worth more than the RM, meaning that Singaporean goods are generally more expensive than Malaysian ones. Fifthly, taxes in Singapore are higher than those in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur. Hence, the goods sold in Singapore will be more expensive than those in Kuala Lumpur. Lastly, housing prices in Singapore are also higher than that of Malaysia due to limited land availability and high demand for houses in Singapore than that of Malaysia. These are the reference links. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.